Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Closing the Gaps, Multi-Channel Brand Impersonation in Healthcare with Red Sift. My name is Joshua Justice. I'm the CTI Manager here at H-ISAC, and I'll be introducing today's speakers from Red Sift. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. However, the speakers may wait to address them at the end. Today's webinar will be recorded and sent to registrants, as well as available on the H-ISAC and Red Sift websites. Today's guests will be Faisal Misley and Francesca Rungerfield. Faisal is a passionate email geek specializing in email security with a decade's worth of experience. And Francesca is the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Red Sift with almost a decade of software as a service experience. Passionate about turning complex ideas into compelling narratives and showcasing customer success. Just a quick intro before we get started. In healthcare, where trust is everything, attackers are finding new ways to exploit it. Beyond phishing, cybercriminals are mimicking trusted brands through DNS misconfigurations, forgotten subdomains, and convincing lookalike domains that deceive patients, partners, and staff before security teams even realize what's happening. So on that note, I'll pass it over to Faisal and Francesca.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We really appreciate you being here. So we're going to be talking about brand impersonation in healthcare that kind of takes place over multi-channels, so email, domain, DNS, and social. And the way that we're going to structure today's webinar is to talk about the problem. So we'll give you some insight into what's happening in the email landscape, look at the problems that can happen in weak DNS and lookalike domains too. And then we'll get into the portion where we tell you about Red Sift. And we won't just tell you, we will also show you, because Faisal is going to be doing a demo. And we will, of course, have time for some Q&As at the end. So just before we get into the nitty-gritty of what we're going to be talking about, a quick introduction to Red Sift for those of you who don't know us. We are a global cybersecurity company, and we exist to create a fundamentally safer internet. And we do this through a suite of applications that span email, web, and PKI. We are proud to have over 1,200 security teams around the globe who trust us. And it's not just our customers who are around the globe, but also us. So I'm based in the UK, Faisal is in Spain. And as you can see by the red dots all over this map, we have people just about everywhere. So you'll always be looked after if you're with Red Sift. So without further ado, well, what is the problem? So if you've joined one of our recent webinars, you may be familiar with this slide. We do start here because email is kind of the foundation for us and for attackers too, because it remains the #1 attack vector for cybercriminals. And what you can see on this slide is an example of exact domain impersonation, which is one of the most dangerous tactics that attackers use, where they take control of an exact domain. So in this example, it's yourcompany.com. And there are no strange characters and there are no red flags. So they are really almost impossible for users to spot. Now, the way for organizations to stave off these kinds of attacks is by having an email authentication protocol called DMARC deployed, which lets only authorized users send emails from your domains. Now, we're really thrilled to report that globally we are seeing an unprecedented adoption of DMARC, and this is primarily driven through the bulk sender requirements put into place by Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft. If you're not familiar with those bulk sender requirements, they are a set of authentication requirements from these email service providers for bulk senders, so anyone who sends more than 5,000 emails a day. And these need to be in place if you want to guarantee the delivery of your mail to your intended recipient. Now, as you can see, since January 2024, when Google and Yahoo kicked off these bulk sender requirements, the numbers have almost doubled. So we're at about 15 million domains with a DMARC record in place now. So it's a super strong signal because authentication is becoming an expectation and not just an extra. But if you look a little bit more closely, you'll see that this graph tells a different story, which is that the vast majority of domains with a DMARC record in place are actually at p equals none, which of the 3 DMARC policies is the weakest policy because it will not stop exact impersonation of your domains. That's because DMARC is a journey, something we discussed in the first episode of this series of webinars. It really is an implementation journey through from p equals none to p equals reject. So what we are hoping for is that we'll see more email service providers tightening their requirements and making DMARC a policy of enforcement, something that more people need to abide by.
Indeed. And just in the last few days, the French ESP La Poste started requiring their own requirements. So we have the big ones now, Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, Apple, and now the regional players are also starting to require. So soon enough, no matter where you deliver, you will have to be compliant. Once you get compliant, the bad actors are also going to innovate. So once they cannot spoof your domain, they'll find other avenues to damage your brand, your supply chain, and your reputation. So as you, as defenders, tighten controls, attackers will adapt. And standards will have blind spots. They are not able to cover every layer of exposure, and mandating them takes time, as we've seen with DMARC. So we've noticed that attackers are now exploiting non-patchable weaknesses in DNS. So think of stale, misconfigured, or forgotten assets belonging to your brand and several other major brands. So by next year, in 2026, these non-patchable surfaces will account for over half of an organization's total exposure, which is a huge rise from the low double digits to over half. Makes clear why visibility into these assets is as critical as securing email. Which brings us to our next focus, subdomaining and how attackers turn DNS gaps into active exploits. So earlier last year, in February of last year, of 2024, research by a company called Guardio emerged as this new, but as you'll see in a few slides, not so new, widespread attack. What attackers are doing is taking over outdated and stale DNS infrastructure to send fraudulent emails on behalf of legitimate brands by the use of domain takeovers. This attack has demonstrated how bad actors have begun to innovate ways around DMARC, especially when a company is already at enforcement, to launch phishing campaigns or even affiliate campaigns that are innocuous on the surface but can do very bad reputational damage, distribute malware or malwares, apologies, or like I said before, tarnish a brand's reputation, even with just innocuous affiliate marketing emails for Windows or one of those health supplements that are of dodgy reputation. So what subdomaining does is it allows attackers to impersonate organizations by sending emails that pass SPF and DKIM, therefore passing DMARC. So DMARC won't really help you with subdomain because the emails will be properly authenticated. So let's take an example of how this might occur in practice. So as I've been mentioning, the bad actors capitalize on poor DNS hygiene. So let's make a hypothetical scenario that you bring a third-party payment gateway online. You want to brand it with your own URL, your own subdomain, so that you can boost confidence with your consumers. Point a CNAME to from pay.yourdomain.com to the platform.externalvendor.com, wherever they may be. Everything's great. Let's say a couple years down the road, you shut down your storefront, and a couple months after that, the vendor goes out of business. As part of that, domains expire because the vendor's no longer in business. Anywhere from a few months to a few years down the road, attackers will use passive DNS to see what's out there that can be impersonated. And they'll notice that the domain's available for purchase and that you have not removed that delegation. So the attacker can buy the domain, they'll buy externalvendor.com. And because teams have not kept up with the stale records, then the link still on, the attacker can recreate with a wildcard record any customer that used to be them that still has it, and publish MX records, publish TXT records, publish NA record, and basically they can impersonate you for free because that subdomain is still pointing to them. So the result is attackers can send malicious mail that leverages your subdomain, your brand reputation. They can host phishing sites that will go undetected because it's using a legitimate domain that you set up ages ago. And it all looks like it's coming from you. DMARC, EDRs, XDRs, nothing's going to be able to protect you because for all intents and purposes, this might be a legitimate thing that you set up. But if you recall at the beginning, what I mentioned is that this attack is not really new. Back in 2019, the DNS Institute had already been starting to watch it, and they've already started reaching out to companies. Companies ignored them. They got less than 3% success rate, meaning they were brushed off by the other 97% of companies. Either it was not a credible threat, they're not prepared, or they were just simply ignored. And these were not small mom and pop shops. As you can see, the domain list from the DNS Institute included Fortune 500 companies, S&P Global largest 100 banks, people who should care about their reputation and where attackers can deliver a great amount of damage, especially due to the reputation of those brands.
Yeah, thank you, Faisal. So, as you've said, attackers pivot. If they can't impersonate your email, they will look at your DNS. But another one of the tactics that they tend to use are lookalike domains. It's super easy to spin up. It's cheap, and I think most crucially, they are incredibly hard to spot, to detect, to monitor, all of that. We'll get into that. But some of the examples of what lookalike domains, kind of the categories that they fall into, are here on screen. So we have an exact brand match in the host name in that first example, redsift-login.io. And this is a really clean and deceptive type because it includes the full brand name in the domain itself. So it makes it perfect for phishing pages like fake login portals. And it looks legitimate. And in the vast majority of cases, these domains also use TLS. So users who are in a rush and are just giving it a quick glance won't question it. You also have the example where the brand name is in the subdomain. The user sees redsift.com at the beginning, but what they don't realize is that the actual verified domain is verified.info. And this is the one that's obviously being controlled by the attacker. And then you have the last example, typo spotting. So a very common technique where attackers play on kind of a visual similarity. So you can see here that the D in Redsift has been swapped for a B. It passes the eye test if you look quickly. So if these are used in things like password reset flows, it's really easy for users to fall for. And so, of course, the challenge with these attacks is that DMARC won't do anything to protect you because these aren't owned domains. They are operating from outside of your perimeter, outside of your infrastructure, and without any monitoring, they fly under the radar. Oops, one too far. So I think another important thing to consider and to kind of remember is when we think about lookalike domains is they don't exist in isolation. They tend to be part of multi-channel attack chains. And so this is an example of an attack chain where lookalikes are just one part. Attackers will stitch these together so the fraudster can kind of move from, social impersonation all the way through to a full account takeover. So what we've got illustrated here is a story that we actually read about recently, not specific to healthcare. It's industry agnostic, but I mean, it can happen for any industry. So here the attackers have gone about doing their research using platforms like Rocket Reach to find CEOs or executives who are worth impersonating, so to speak. They then spin up the fake profiles using real information, so real bios, real places of work, real headshots. And once they have these profiles in place, they start to build out their network of people. And very often it's employees and partners because they want to tap into people who have access in likelihood to systems. They then send out messages pointing to lookalike domains. So this is where the lookalike comes in. So it might be a login page or a payment link, or it might be a website selling fake goods. In this example, the victim follows the link. They are entering credentials, let's say into a password flow, and the attacker gains the access. And from there, it's pretty much game over, because the attacker can use the now real account. They've gotten into the real account to send BEC, to send invoice fraud, requests for fund transfers, you name it. And they're coming from a trusted, legitimate account. The one that I just gave away quickly is actually a healthcare example. I think this is very recent, actually from September of this year. So an example of a really sophisticated attack. The gentleman in this picture, it's a New York Times article, is Dr. Robert Lustig, who's a very well-known endocrinologist, and he became the target of a very coordinated and AI-powered scam. So similar to what I've just walked through, but what happened was fake Facebook profiles were set up using, again, his images, his name. They then spun up ads to point to completely counterfeit products that were for GLP-1, and those scammers were then constantly rotating the domains to stay ahead of takedowns. So this is the new reality. You have impersonated identities, you have deceptive ads, lookalike domains, and fake products, and they all kind of work together in this coordinated chain. And it's happening at scale because AI has made it cheap and easy. Faisal, I think you're going to talk to us about why it's hard to defend against this problem.
I am. So let's talk about the real world challenge of defending against lookalike domains. So it's not that organizations don't want to solve this problem. It's that the problem itself is incredibly complex and resource intensive. Domains are not expensive. They can cost anywhere from $1 to $10, and attackers can pivot quickly and mostly using stolen cards. So here's why it's an incredibly complex problem. So first, you're dealing with millions of potential lookalike variations. Like I mentioned before, domains are cheap. Attackers can register endless combinations, whether it's typos, tack on unlimited subdomains to a single domain, homoglyphs, brand mashups. Just this morning, I came into a cross where they were using an IDN, which is an internationalized domain name, attacking Proton, the Swiss email provider, using an O with the little dash on top, hoping that people would not notice that. It's literally impossible to defensively register or monitor all of them using manual methods. throw social channels into the mix, and you've got a tsunami of data to look through, sift, and keep an eye on. So when you try to review them, you then flooded with false positives. Most of these might be from domain brokers that just put in a for sale page, hoping that a brand will buy them. And most of these domains aren't inherently malicious, but figuring which ones are is a massive drain on time and expertise that your SOC team may not have. Without automation, your teams will end up drowning in noise. So even when a review does happen, it's still a single point-in-time snapshot. Domains change, social accounts change, DNS records change. One domain or social media profile that is dormant today might be weaponized tomorrow, next week. So if you're not continuously monitoring it and associating the risk level, you'll miss that escalation. And lastly, even if you identify a suspicious domain or profile, taking action is slow. It usually requires input from legal, brand, IT security, which makes it very difficult to act decisively without significant combination and effort. Not to mention, some SOC teams might not know who to report it to, how to take it down. So the result is infinite variations, huge amount of noise and volume of noise, and there's no scalable way to realistically keep up. So for years, defending against digital threats meant working with a patchwork of vendors. A little thing here, a little thing there, hoping that between the 5 or 6 vendors, you'll get complete exposure and protection. One for email, one for DNS, one for domain and social media monitoring. Each tool solved a part of the problem, but none of them spoke the same language or even talked to each other. Nowadays, the market is shifting. Consolidation is key. Instead of 5 disconnected vendors, organizations want unified visibility. One place to see and act across DNS, email, domains, social, URLs, threat intelligence. And that's exactly where we, Red Sift, come in.
Thanks, Faisal. You teed that up beautifully. So we are going to talk about some of the applications on the Red Sift platform today. What you see here is kind of a simplified view of how the platform works, and our PKI application, Red Sift certificates, and also our attack surface management tool, ASM. Today, though, we are going to be showing you a little bit from on DMARC, and also brand trust. And so just before Faisal gets into his demo, I'll give you the quick TLDR on what those applications do. So on DMARC is our automated DMARC application. It helps organizations of all shapes and sizes and all industries set up and manage email protocols, including DMARC, DKIM, SBF, BIMI, and MTA SDS. And it does do more than that. It goes beyond just DMARC. We also have a DNS Guardian feature, which you'll be seeing, and this kind of covers the DNS hygiene point that we were making, how important it is to have continuous DNS configuration monitoring in place. We do that. We are uniquely positioned as a DMARC vendor to do that. And then when you look on the right-hand side, we have brand trust. So this is our solution that looks at not your owned domain. So this goes beyond your perimeter to look at, well, who is mimicking you, who is pretending to be you. So brand trust detects lookalike domains by monitoring up to 150 million host names a day. It provides continuous risk monitoring and also integrated takedowns. So, Faisal, do you want to take it away and show us a little bit of the product?
I will be honored to.
Okay, it's all yours.
Perfect. So As you can see on screen, this is our Red Sift on DMARC product. You have your domains listed with their current state and their current DMARC policies. You might be halfway through your journey, but you have your key domains protected. On the left-hand side, we have DNS Guardian. As I mentioned earlier, DNS hygiene is often overlooked. People will secure their domains, they'll apply DMARC, they'll apply EDRs, XDRs, firewalls, but DNS hygiene is often overlooked. So what DNS Guardian does is taking some proprietary technologies from our Hardenized acquisition a couple of years ago to scan the entire estate of all domains that are in your OnDMARC account. So we use a variety of different mechanisms to discover all subdomains that belong to that root domain that's added to OnDMARC, and then continuously scan them for any vulnerabilities. And when I say vulnerabilities, I mean DNS hygiene vulnerabilities. Is this domain susceptible to takeover? Has it already been taken over? And things like that. I don't mean vulnerabilities such as can this be exploited via CVE.
Faisal, just quickly, can you zoom in a little bit for people like me with not such great eyesight? I'm wondering if you can just make your screen a bit bigger. There we go. Yeah.
Of course. Is that better? Do you want me to zoom in?
If you can go any more, then that would be great, because then we can see things like the issue type that you have, the various
I have a
types.
fairly big
I figured you
so.
on your big screen, no problem.
So it tends to happen. I zoom out so I can see the big picture. No pun intended. So what DNS Guardian does, as you can see here, is will categorize different issues based on their severity and based on their type. So in this case, it's discovered 13 issues across 11 unique host names. 5 of them are critical, 8 of them are high, and the distribution of if it's a dangling CNAME, a dangling name server record, or a dangling DNS delegation. If we open one of these, I'm going to open a dangling NS record. You can see that this domain is pointing to a name server that no longer resolves. So if I wanted to buy nonexistentserver.com, I can then take control of your entire domain because you've essentially delegated that to those name servers. And as I now control those name servers, I can act as your authoritative DNS record. We will give you an example as to what it is and what you should do. We can also tell you if in our telemetry we've detected emails to be sent from that compromised domain or host so that you can see if it's being weaponized in real time. If we go to a dangling CNAME instead, we can also do the same thing, show you the same remediation procedures, and the same with dangling DNS, dangling delegations. In this case, it is a CNAME that points to an active A record, but that A record might be returning 404s. You can, whether it's an S3 bucket, an Azure web app, Firebase app, you name it. In this case, it was a Heroku app as well. So not only that, but DNS Guardian continuously monitors. So when you fix it, we will remove it from this list, but we will keep checking in case that something new arises, because DNS hygiene is not a one and done. Services come, services go, marketing teams go, marketing teams go. Come and go, apologies. So that is DNS Guardian and how it can help you detect blind spots in your DNS hygiene. Moving over to brand trust. Like Fran said, this is to protect, once you've protected your own castle, how do you protect your perimeter or your the rest of your estate? So brand trust we start by seeding it with your domains. You can connect it to OnDmark and automatically keep it in sync. So all your owned estate from OnDmark gets pulled into brand trust, and we start monitoring for lookalikes based on those domains. Now, brand trust has a very unique feature that I personally love that I call identities. So based on the domains you've classified as your own, we start building identities, whether it's name in a whois, email addresses, MX records if they're on-prem, certificate, company names and certificates. And you can turn those identities on so that when we find a domain with those identities, we can tell you, hey, this domain might belong to you because it has operations at redsift.io in the whois email, or it's registered to Red Sift Limited. So identities will also help you sift through the noise and discover shadow IT or domains you may not even know you owned, or that marketing or a contractor or a third party registered on your behalf, but they're pointing to your estate. Therefore, they are safe. In the dashboard, you can see at a glance how we're progressing. Now, one of the points I mentioned is it is impossible to sift all through the data, and most domains are not malicious. So we have an AI agent doing the work for you. The AI agent will triage, sift through all the lookalikes, and based on a variety of signals it gets, will tell you which ones are safe, suspicious, and which ones are takedown candidates. It'll use signals such as identities, logos, faces of your executives, and so on and so forth. So if we go into activity and I move to high risk, you can see here that there are 9 domains with logos, 3 domains with my executive faces, and 9 domains that feature faces. And the AI agent has recommended 9 domains as takedown candidates. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier is we have a specially trained engine that is, once you feed it your logo or your faces of your executives, it will also use that to scan the lookalikes and see which of the lookalikes are weaponized or use your logo. This is especially useful in social media monitoring, which I'll show in a second, especially for executive detection.
Faisal, before you show us the social media, you might just need to hit us with another zoom level because it's quite small. Yeah, that's better.
Apologies. I forgot that it's on a per tab basis. Thanks for interrupting.
No problem.
So I'm at a lookalike detail. You can see that there is a screenshot that has detected 1 logo and 4 keywords, as well as a redirect. The AI is telling us that the domain closely mimics the Red Sift brand and name in visual presentation, but there doesn't seem to be any business relationship between the lookalike and your assets. You can see here that it's correctly detected our logo, as well as the logo for Red Sift certificates, and as well as the word certificates as well. You will also get details such as when was it first observed, when was it last scanned, who the DNS provider is it web ready? Again, is it being used for subdomaining attacks? Does it have an MX record? Have we detected this lookalike sending emails? As well as whois information and DNS history. This all gives you a whole comprehensive package that you can then either download a summary or even mark for takedown directly from within the interface. If we go to faces instead. So in this case, you can see that it's correctly detected faces of our two founders, as well as also detecting the logo like in the previous example. With social media, the seed is the same. You seeded a brand, you tell it who your executives are, and then we start seeding it with your own social media presence. And from there, we start looking. We look at all these social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, Telegram, between Twitter, X. And it uses the same lookalike engine to detect logos and keywords and executives. So you will see, for example, this YouTube video has 2 followers and it's using Red Sift in their brand name. But you can see that the videos are not related at all, and this does not look like a threat. But if we open this Facebook, we see that this Facebook site has 234 followers, and it has Rahul's social media details, which happens to be our CEO. So it flagged it as an executive lookalike. Here is my own ex-Twitter profile that got found by the platform because I have Red Sift in our banner, and in my bio, I also mentioned Red Sift. Like Fran was saying, the bad actors will attempt to add keywords in the bio to make them more legitimate, or banners, especially on LinkedIn, where you can work anywhere and LinkedIn won't check. Much as with lookalikes, you can mark for takedown, and we can help you get rid of this social media malicious profile that could be impersonating you. So Brand Trust can help you automate and sift through all the lookalikes, all the false positives, all the vast amount of data that there is in the internet, surface only the critical points that you need to pay attention to, for the lack of a better word, and your SOC teams can ignore the rest and only focus on what we surface that we think you should take advantage of. As you see, we can also do Instagram and pretty much all the big social media networks. We can also hook this up to a SIEM or a SOC through our Event Hub integration. And like I mentioned, we can do takedowns as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And if not, I will pass it back to Fran.
Thank you, Faisal. So I just have one last slide, 1 or 2. So kind of key takeaways from today. If there's nothing else that you walk away with, we've put them in this handy slide, these 3 boxes that should be fairly easy to remember. So what we like to drive home is that there is a trinity of applications and of tactics that you need to protect your brand. It starts with policy enforcement via DMARC, so that's making sure that your exact domains are protected. It's then looking at your DNS and making sure that attackers can't exploit things that are stale and forgotten and misconfigured. And obviously at Red Sift, we do that through DNS Guardian. And then finally, it's looking beyond your own domains to your perimeter for lookalike defense. You can find more information at redsift.com. The other thing you can do after this webinar or at any time is go to redsift.com/free assessment or scan the QR code if you're on your mobile, for example. And you will be taken to a page where there's a very simple form fill. If you have questions about DMARC, or you're not sure about your DNS health, or you might have a question about PKI, something that we haven't spoken about today. Anything to do with cybersecurity and your cyber concerns, drop us a message and someone will get back to you. And it's completely free of charge and no strings attached. So that takes us to the end. I think if I look in the chat, we just have a couple of questions, Faisal. So let me pull those out for you. So one question. We don't use social media, so surely social isn't important to us. What would you say to that?
So you might not be on social media. Social media might not be important to you or your marketing team, but your attackers are. And I want to say that if you're not on social media, then attackers even have a better leg to stand on, because since there's no official presence, they can create fake accounts to impersonate your brand, mislead your customers, and distribute phishing links. Your absence actually makes it easier for them, which is why monitoring matters, especially if you do not have social as a strong or core component of your marketing strategy.
Perfect. And just one other, actually also on social media, should we pay to monitor social media accounts, or can our marketing team do that for free?
So much like trying to look for lookalikes or your SOC team doing it, manual monitoring catches only what you happen to see, while automated monitoring scans continuously across all platforms and has access to a bigger data pipe than a regular human would. It also helps you flag threats early and give you evidence for takedowns. In short, it removes the guesswork and the manual drain on your team, whether it's marketing or the SOC team.
Super. Well, that's all that we have in the chat. If anyone else has any questions, please do go to redsift.com. You can contact us fairly simply from our website. And Josh, over to you for our outro.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Once again, I'd like to thank our speakers for their insight and our listeners for taking the time to attend the webinar. Thanks, Faisal. Thanks, Francesca. And thanks to everyone for joining today. We'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Josh.